Oh yeah, when it's quiet, that's when you find the biggest messes. But it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
It's always worth it.
It's worth it. Hey everybody, welcome to the Miles of Moms podcast. We are a podcast for moms who run by moms who run. I'm Whitney.
I'm Olivia.
I'm Shanna.
I'm Tricia.
We're gonna try to bring the energy, but we're all a little tired today. I think. Kind of a lot. We're in the season of illness and weather, and Shanna keeps having little eyes peeping on her during this.
What's funny is I was thinking earlier, the other day we went on Carrie Pagliano's podcast, for those listening, and she asked us about like being in the season of thriving. Like, when did we get out of the survival mode? I was thinking that today as I'm like dying. I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, I am still in it.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like you're like the epitome of survival mode. Especially because you're our, working single mom. You are essentially surviving and thriving all the time, right?
I don't know about thriving, but yeah.
I feel like you're thriving from like 4 to 6 a.m.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Those early mornings. Yeah.
I will agree with that. And then I'm surviving.
But without those 2 hours, that's how you are able to survive, right?
Yeah. Oh, without those 2 hours, it would be a little sloppy, I think.
It's so crazy. Sloppy. Like, I was thinking about how you were like, I've been working out with my son for 9 years now. You made this real. And I was like, it's crazy because his version of it will always be that you were thriving. And that's pretty neat because like he won't know that you were just like in survival mode, especially like during this time and snow days and not being able to go to work because you have all your kids. But to them, it's like it's like the most fun ever. They're like, mom's home. We got to stay home from school for the snow and stuff. So yeah,
that is a cool way to look at it. Although he did say this morning, he's like, Mom, I don't know if this is a good day for you because you couldn't go to work. Brinley's sick. We're all home and it's snowing and you hate snow. I was like, do you think anything good's going to happen to me today? He's like, probably not.
Oh, man.
I'm like, thanks.
That's really funny.
But you're so right. Like, they don't know like the ins and outs of the craziness that goes on. So
100%.
I love that.
Yeah.
Gosh.
That is wild.
I hear screaming in the background.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have Eleanor here. She's hiding out. She's got to tell me. She's hiding. I'm surprised she doesn't want to be on.
That was really good.
She's just judging all of your hair right now. That's usually she comes in and now she's embarrassed.
I was going to say, mine is not judgeable
all your
today.
Hair looks wonderful.
I'm judging my hair.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
This girl.
They can't see it. Okay. I'm muting myself for a second.
Okay. I keep muting myself because my twins and them are playing like right behind my door. So it's
my gosh.
probably where the kid screaming is coming from. I'm just like, where is he? Like, why? Why?
That's always how, when they say they're going to be home at some point and you're like, when my husband is like playing pickleball or something and I'm waiting for him to get home or on his way home from work, literally by the minute I'm like, where is he? He's literally so late, and it'll only be 3 minutes past when he's said or something, but it's when you're waiting for something specific. But your kids also have to go to school, so
yeah they have like Valentine's parties this week, which is another whole like, why is there a holiday in every month? Why? I'm so tired of doing all this shit every month. Like, I don't want to pay any more stuff for any more crap. Like, I'm just like,
seriously.
I just did that today.
Yeah, I literally had to
we were doing it today.
Send out Eric last night, and I was like, this kid needs this kid needs this kid needs this. I'm like, practically pretty much you need enough for 5 kids for like 50 kids, like each. And it's just like, oh my gosh, why is there a holiday in every month? Like, I don't get it.
And I used
just
to
go on
like
strike, or you could say it's your religion.
I should. They're like, we're the same religion.
You're like, oh, no, it's not my type. I have a different version.
Yeah.
Olivia, I just realized what was on my bed behind me.
Ball.
It's a ball. Oh my gosh.
Ball.
Like I will never look at medicine balls.
Well used.
I could not think of the word medicine ball.
I don't know why this ball is such a dirty ball. I have no idea.
Oh my God,
it's very dirty.
You sleeping with those dirty balls?
No, I have yet to do any of my workouts today.
Not that specific set.
Not that specific, yes. I am sleeping. Actually, I'm sleeping with a couple sets. Oh my God, that's so weird. I want to edit this out. And what I meant by that is because I'm just not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
With that. I'm just going to stop.
No edits.
I mean,
wow.
No edits.
No.
I got the ball rolling with the joke, but you've really taken it a lot.
I did not mean to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sturdy.
So, Shanna, you have a shout out today, right?
She would just throw the mic at me like that.
I'm trying to change the topic off of where that was going. I am redirecting the train.
Yes, we do. I have a shout out. So, Amy Drum, she just ran a marathon, I want to say 2 weeks ago. She sent a shout out and she's just incredible. So I'll just go ahead and just read it. I'm not even going to try to figure out how to, yeah. She says, here's my best shot at it. You can cut it down to as short as you need, which I am not doing that. So my name is Amy Drum, born and raised in Alabama and currently living in Florida. I am a 37-year-old homeschool mama of 5, ages 8 and under. She's like living my life, you guys. Youngest being 18 months. I began running after college at age 25 after my best friend asked me to run a marathon with her. Not knowing anything about marathon training, I Googled a training plan and went for it. Hey, she sounds like Whitney and Tricia. Yes. During the race, someone in the crowd shouted that I was just a few minutes shy of qualifying for the Boston. I turned to the man running next to me and asked him what the Boston was.
It's a city in Massachusetts.
Yeah, huge race, but it's okay. Ever since then, I've had a goal of qualifying. That was 12 years ago. July 2024, when my youngest son turned 1, I decided to get a coach and go all in on my goal. However, this year proved to be the hardest year I would ever face. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. I was hospitalized with a rare bacteria in my blood. And 1 month before my marathon, my mom passed away unexpectedly. I nearly gave up on my goal, but I knew my mom would never, in a million years, want me to quit. So I ran for her. On February 2nd, 2025, exactly 1 month after she passed, I ran a 3:17, a 23-minute PR, 1 hour, 28 minutes faster than my most recent marathon, and a second place female spot on the podium. I love all the mama runners to know that we are stronger than we can ever imagine. No matter what you're going through, if you can take that first step, even if it's one step a day, then a few more, it will get easier day by day. You are stronger than anything the enemy can throw at you. My best friend, that is a coach for Girls on the Run, reminded me of an encouraging quote they tell the girls, and I think of it every time I run now. If you can't run with your legs, run with your heart. I hope this helps someone struggling with challenging seasons or loss and finding a way to lace up their shoes and start again.
Wow. That was so good.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps.
I know. Like, made me emotional when I heard her story. I was just like, we have to shout her out. Like, she's, wow. Like, I don't even know if I would end up at the start line, to be honest. Like,
that's
a month later. That's incredible.
That is.
Way to go, Amy.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
When it rains, it pours. I feel like when bad stuff happens, it like tends to all happen at once. What strength. Most people would just want to crawl and like under the covers and not come out.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. Well, Amy, congratulations. Okay, so this is airing in Eating Disorder Awareness month, February, but this is like the week for it. And so we are going to tackle this big subject because it does impact, I think, so many female runners, especially, well, I was going to say competitive, but I think all female runners have had some sort of struggle along, the spectrum with their relationship with food. So are you guys good to start talking about this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We are all home with our kids today, and Cal and Eleanor are getting into it right now. So I'm sorry if I sound distracted. I'm like, do I need to go intervene, or is somebody hurt yet? Yeah. So I am going to pass the baton to you, Tricia, because I think you have been the most vocal on the topic, and you have a very powerful story. And so, are you comfortable with sharing your story to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been very vocal about my story, and so it really dates back to 8th grade. I remember being in a dance class and looking in the mirror and thinking I was fat, and I wasn't, but it was like awkward time for, like prepubescent girl, and it was just like awkward timing, right? And so I remember deciding like I'm going to start running. And so the very next day I got up and I started running, and I kind of like naturally was kind of leaning out, and then I would get compliments. And so I started quickly associating with being thin as being better. And so I took that to an extreme, would run, not eat. My family was big on family dinners, and I would always be skipping out on the family dinners and saying that I had to run so I could, be better for cross country. And I got really, really thin. So that was 8th grade going into my freshman year in high school. And throughout high school, I was kind of up and down, where it would be pretty bad and then I would be okay. And so, got through high school, but then going to college. So I grew up in Massachusetts and went to college undergrad in Southern Florida. And I partied pretty hard in high school. So once I was done with high school, I was like, I'm kind of done with that. Like when I go to college, I'm going to just run, because at that time I was supposed to run cross country for the school I was going to. They ended up dropping the team because there was only one other girl and I went to a really small private school. But I was like, okay, I'm going to run. I'll go to school and that's it. Like, I'm not interested in anything else. So I got to school and I lost a lot of weight, like pretty fast. So I'm almost 5'6". I got to under 100 pounds pretty quickly. And I had a friend who was at a neighboring school that I had gone to high school with come to visit me. This is probably a month into being in school, and grabbed my wrist and was like, Tricia, what are you doing? Because I was very visibly not healthy at all. And I just had a full-blown anxiety attack, panic attack. Called my boyfriend at the time, who was back in Massachusetts. He called my parents. My parents had me on a plane the next day. So I missed out on my whole freshman year of college, which was really hard because, that's the time where people are forming relationships, and that's when you're getting to know like your really good friends in school. And I was really fortunate to where my teachers were amazing and I was able to complete the whole year virtually. But I also had to go into Boston multiple times. I think it was like twice a week, where I met with a dietitian, a medical doctor, and a psychologist. But at the time, I had no interest in getting better, because I was like, okay, I kind of know like this is a problem, but it's not that bad. And I just am going to do whatever I can to get back to school. So I told off the psychologist. She was like not doing it for me. I'm 18 years old. Like, I know better than anyone else. You don't know what I'm going through. But the medical doctor knew I loved to run. And she used that as kind of a bribe. So it was like, if you gain 2 pounds this week, when we weigh you in next week, I'll let you run 5 minutes. I was like, okay. So she used that as like a tool to help me out. And it did. Like, it was very good motivation, but I wasn't ready to heal at that time. It was just like, I just want to go back to school. So I ended up going back to Florida the following year, lost even more weight. And I would hide it. So my family was in Massachusetts, right? So they didn't see me, but I remember my dad he came in for a work trip one time, and I just like layered up with clothes because my roommate at the time was like, Tricia, if your dad sees you, you're gone, because I was just so unhealthy. I mean, I probably was eating a couple hundred calories a day and running in the Florida heat like hours. I don't even know how I was functioning. Like, I remember walking around campus just like total daze because I mean my brain just didn't have enough energy to function. Like I don't know how. I'm very lucky that I didn't die, to be quite honest. Like I just beat my body so bad. But anyways, so kind of got through that. And then I started to really want to run further distances. So signed up for a half marathon and I was like, okay, I need to fuel. I need to, like, things started to click, like, oh, like I can't run these longer distances if I'm not eating. So I started to improve, ran the half, loved it, immediately signed up for the Miami Marathon. So that was my junior year. And so running really was kind of like a huge, amazing part of my recovery because I started to associate the fact that I have to eat in order to be able to run, rather than continue to use it as a way to abuse myself, which is how I started to run. It was like, and I think that's the case for so many people is I want to get fit, I want to lose weight, I start running, but I took it to the extreme. So I had a lot of ebbs and flows with it. I mean, an eating disorder, for most of us, it's all about control. So when I graduated from college, my family had moved from Massachusetts to Virginia, and I knew no one in Virginia. So it kind of started all over again, where I moved to Virginia, I know no one, I went south again. Just over-exercising, not eating, binging and purging some. It was not good. But then it was, again, my cousin signed me up for the Richmond Marathon. And my parents are like, no way in hell are you running this until you get a full physical. So went and had a physical, told the doctor, like, hey, this is my history. They had me signed up for a stress test, like cardiac stress test via ultrasound. And that was a moment where I was like, holy shit, what did I do? Because I'm sitting there like looking at my heart pumping and thinking like, wow, like I could have really screwed myself like forever. And not to mention like everything hormonally. I mean, I didn't have my period for years and, you know, they would just throw birth control at me. But to think now having 3 kids that I could have totally destroyed any chance of that happening too, is like, it still kind of shakes me. But I'm very fortunate. My heart was good. I didn't screw anything up. I had a DEXA scan, like my bones were good. So I'm very, very lucky because I know people that went down the hole and track that I did with eating disorders, and they're not that fortunate now. But yeah, there's ups and downs all the time. And one thing that I have learned is that when you're in the eating disorder cycle and you're just deep in it, it's so hard to think that you can get out of it. It's everything you think about. You obsess about everything that you're putting in your mouth. You obsess about, if I go out with friends, like, how do I get around eating? I wouldn't go to restaurants. Like, it just impacted every single aspect of my life, relationships, everything. And so while you think you have so much control over this eating disorder, it's the total opposite. It has so much control over you. You're just like a pawn in this, you know, awful disorder. I mean, and it's so, I remember so many people be like, oh, why don't you just eat a cheeseburger? It's like, if only it was that simple, you know? It's like, it's a mental disorder. And as we're approaching it, I know Amanda Katz, who we all know here, she has shared before, you know, so many people will share before and afters from an eating disorder, which is so messed up because having an eating disorder, it doesn't have a look. Like you can be so malnourished and underfed and look sickly, but you can also look totally normal or, you know, quote unquote, be a healthy weight and be really struggling with an eating disorder. So it's such an awful thing to go through. And it's something that never goes away. You know, I feel like thank God, like I've been in a really good place for a while. I think having kids really helped with that. It gave me a new appreciation for my body. And I can't destroy my body. My kids need to have a healthy mother. But I definitely have times where I'm like, oh, like down on my body and my brain starts to cycle back, but I'm very quick to rein it back in. Yeah. So it's not something that ever goes away.
It doesn't go away. Yeah.
Right. A lot of what you said, like my story very much overlays with yours. I'm curious if how that coupling of running and eating and having that help you with viewing food as fuel, what did that look like when running was taken away as you were struggling with trying to get your vestibular diagnosis? Sorry, I can't talk today, apparently.
It was tough. And I know that, Whitney, we've talked about this before too, like when you're going through injuries and with the vestibular thing too, it was definitely a struggle because, a lot of us are with that history, you get hurt and it's like, oh my God, like I have to stop eating. I'm going to gain so much weight. I'm going to blow up because I'm not running, when in the reality of it is like, that's not how it works. And even if it does, is it really the end of the day? You gain a couple pounds. But it was like looking back, I can see things I was doing that were not healthy. And I think stress plays a lot of it, because I'm someone, like if I am in a negative place and I'm dealing with a lot of stress, the last thing I want to do is eat. It's like, stress eating is not the thing for me. It's like, I have no appetite. I just get too like wound up. And I think when going through the vestibular stuff, it was a lot of the same. And it was like so much stress that I was just like, I need to hammer my body and neglect the eating. It never got to the point where it had been in the past, but there were definitely more struggles for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's so funny. It's when you don't have running and that it's like the immediate switch to like, you should immediately just cut your calories down it's like a natural reaction, and that it's just embedded in you for whatever reason, which is so crazy because for injury, that's a great way to stay injured. Like is to not feed yourself, right? And then even I had never taken, since I started running, other than having my babies, I'd never taken 2 weeks off. And we had like a girls' night and we went out to dinner, which was like the ultimate test for me. And I was like, I went home and I was like, I ordered steak and I had fries and mashed potatoes and I ate it all in front of people in public. And I was like, it's so funny because like to him, it's like, okay, well, so you ordered dinner and you ate with your friends. Congrats, And to me, I was like, no, you have no idea.
That's a
like
big deal.
I wasn't running during this time. This would have been a great time for me to cancel or to have ordered soup. Like that's like a very natural thing to do when you are in that cycle. And because like it doesn't matter how far out of it you are. I don't get triggered so much by things so much anymore, but when other people have weird eating habits, I'm immediately like, either I need to say something about it or I need to distance myself from that person because like my son's preschool teacher last year, she went on Ozempic and she became extremely antisocial. Like her and I were always close, always good friends through my pregnancy. After, I was always at her house, and then she lost so much weight, like an alarming amount. And I was like, that's why I haven't seen her for 6 months. Like, because like now it's become this thing where her whole life revolves around food. And I feel like, yes, she used this medication to do it, but at the same time, she's having all these like disordered thoughts where she's like antisocial now. And if I invite her over for food, she'll come over after the meal is done so that she doesn't have to say no to it and stuff. And it's just, I pick up on these things so quickly now. Like it's so odd to like that other people don't think like that. But a lot of times when you've been around other athletes, or like for me in ballet, like I feel like with ballet, it's very hand in hand. Like I wouldn't have known anything else, to be honest, with my mom also being a ballerina and stuff. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that's funny. I have noticed that too when I'm, especially with other runner friends, and they'll be like, oh, there's no way I could eat that whole burrito, or look how much I ate and it wasn't that much, and they're calling attention to it. And it's like they're trying to absolve themselves because they feel shame for eating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true though. I feel like you never get rid of it. Like I was never diagnosed, but I very clearly, like when I was in my early 20s, hard, like you, Tricia, I'm 5'6". I was under 100 pounds. I think I told you this, Tricia. I was a newscaster at the time, and we would have, like, I was on the morning show, and people would come and bring, like, we'd have like cookouts and taste tests and stuff, and I would never eat it, and I would like hold it in my mouth and then go spit it out on a commercial break, and it was totally controlling me. And it like it was, I over exercise, if I ate, I know Olivia, you talked about this too, like if I ate extra, then I would have to exercise double. I was thinking about this on my run this morning. Like I would go up to DC and visit my boyfriend, and then come back and stop at the grocery store and get a carton of ice cream and a box of Captain Crunch Berry cereal. I'd eat them both, all of them, throw it up, take a Tylenol PM, and then go to sleep at 4:00 because I had to go to work at midnight. And that was my life. Like, and then, be cheerful on the morning show, and nobody had any idea. I was so lonely. I felt so out of control because I was in this job, and I felt miserable, and I was so antisocial because it's very hard to have a social life when you're working those hours. And and I didn't really realize how controlling of me that it was until I moved here to Knoxville. I was in Virginia at the time. And I was like, I thought I could fix it myself, and I couldn't fix it myself. So I did see a therapist. And then soon after, I met Jake, and I wasn't lonely anymore, and I didn't feel like out of control. But it still comes up when I can't run. As we all know, I've been injured, and there's been lots of times when I can't run, and it's like those thoughts creep in, or I see a picture of myself where I look not, hey, Eleanor, okay, I need privacy. I don't know, 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I love you. Bye. See ya. Well, she's a reason. She's a reason why you can't let those thoughts creep back in, because you are modeling everything. So it's almost like now I rebel against it, where I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to eat the extra cookies and the extra cereal, and, and I will like never, anytime I've met with a nutritionist for like other reasons, for like sports reasons, I'm always like, I do not count macros. I don't ever want to like go into that territory ever again, because I lived in a world where I counted like every calorie, and it was so all consuming. And and it's just like you felt like your whole worth hinged on a number. Like that's what made you special, So, but it's still, it still creeps in. I feel good when running feels good, like, so when it's not, and when I can't run, that's when I'm in dangerous territory. But like right now, everything feels good. So it's like, I know Tricia told me to get rid of my scale a while ago, but I'm like, I don't care how much I weigh. I don't care how much I'm eating. I don't care if I feel like I'm eating too much, because I feel good. So that's all that matters. But like, if any of that's called into question, then that's when those doubts start creeping back in. And Eleanor, she's almost 11, and she is becoming very body aware. It's like, she is, do I look fat? I mean, I don't know where it comes from, because I do not speak that way about myself ever. Even when I had issues, like I would not talk about myself that way. But so I know that she is soaking in everything. And so if there's like ever reason for me to stay healthy, it's her and what I'm modeling for her. So
it's such a good point. Yeah. And even with the scale, like That was a huge moment for me. When I remember going out for a run, because I was obsessive with the scale, multiple times a day, in the morning, at night, and if it would go up a pound even, it would drastically affect my mood for an entire day. One day I remember going out for a long run, and I was marathon training, and I kicked ass, and I felt so good, and I came home and got on the scale, and it was a couple pounds up, and I was like, you know what, fuck this. I can't let this stupid piece of metal dictate how I feel. I just had the best run. So I took this thing, walked it out into the alley, and just chucked it into the trash. And have you guys ever seen how Stella got her groove back?
No, but I'm picturing you having a very Britney Spears moment.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, yes. So there's how Stella got her groove back. Angela Bassett, she finds out her husband's cheating on him, and she just lights his closet on fire. All his clothes, and that's how I felt. I just felt so badass. I'm yes. So I feel such a good point with the counting calories and macros and it's so easy to get so obsessed with those when you have had this history.
Do you guys feel like some people use competitive running as an excuse to mask their poor relationship with food and or eating disorders?
Yeah. Shanna, have you seen that a lot? Just being in because you've been in the competitive field for so long.
Yeah, I had a teammate. Sorry, I'm slightly sick. I have a teammate that in high school, I was a freshman and she was a sophomore. She definitely was struggling with an eating disorder. It was pretty obvious for me even to recognize. And she would mask it a lot. She would just be very extreme on a lot of things. We would go out on trips, we would do this Vegas invitational from California, and she would bring her own tuna packets and things like that. And there's a lot of red flags, or she would only be eating an apple all the time. I would see her eat an apple all the time, and I was like, does she eat anything else than an apple, And as a freshman, I looked up to her so much because she was fast and she was older and she was already established there on the team. And so for me, even if I was at her caliber of running, she was still a mentor to me. And it was really hard because back then, that was the common thing for endurance runners to hear is the lighter you are, the faster you are. That was very common to accept. It was not unheard of for coaches to say that to you. Luckily, my coaches never said that to me, but it was very common to hear that in that realm. And I personally have never experienced an eating disorder. So I think I have more questions of how to approach somebody that does have it, and how do we have that hard conversation, especially when it's people that you love or that are close to you. How do you approach that? I don't know how to do that without offending or assuming, right? Because I feel there's some people that are in the rut of their eating disorder, but they're not ready to recognize that they have it, but you can see it because you're not in it. It's like any addiction, right? Or any kind of disorder. When you're not in it, you have a clearer vision of what's going on. Whereas the person that's in it, they're so deep in it that they don't even know that it's not normal. And so I guess that would be my question. I have more questions of how to approach people, how to spot it, and then how do you support them in that moment of a hardship like that?
That's such a good question because like I was just saying, either I tell my friend that I'm seeing things, or and you risk ruining your friendship over that. I remember when I was living with one of my ballet schoolmates, I had been in recovery for a while, and she started getting super thin, and so I told her mom about it, and then they essentially did not take it seriously at the time, and then it got so bad, and I felt like I couldn't be around that anymore, because a lot of times when if a sober person can't be around someone who drinks, that's a very understandable move, but it probably isn't recognized the same way. But for us in ballet school, there was a lot of us that did the same things, and so you'd pick up on these things and you'd copy them and things like that. And so I had a friend who was super anorexic, and then I became like that too. And so she would teach me all these things, and of how to get through the weigh-ins and things like that, and how to get rid of your Ensure drinks that they would give you. And if anybody had approached me about any of it, though, I would have denied I would have denied like my life depended on it. And it was until it got taken away from me that was when they were like, you either have to do this and go to the doctor and all this stuff. And especially just with a younger crowd, because like you said, when you're 18, you think you know everything. That is the hardest time. There has to be something that genuinely is taken away from you to like wake you up a little bit. But if it was ever like something with me now, it would have to just be a very calm. I hate feeling like I'm getting accused of something.
Yeah.
And my husband sometimes will do that because like I was just talking to him about it the other day. I was like, it's crazy because like now we can have Costco sized bags of chips in the house where 5 years ago we would have never been able to have a bag of chips in the house. Either I would have eaten the whole thing or I would have freaked out about it being there. And like because it's such a control thing, and like I would have felt like it was making me fat just by being in the house. And like it was like I simply couldn't understand it. But whenever he starts calling me out in a certain tone, it freaks me out so much because I'm like, is he saying something that I'm not seeing? And like, is he judging me? And it's super embarrassing. Like that's the hardest part, is it's just so embarrassing to get back into the mode. And because it happens so quickly. And for me, it happens like even with running still, like he'll have to be like, if you don't eat more right now, you will never get faster. You will get injured and you'll never, ever, ever get faster. And it has to be served to me like I'm 5, like gentle parenting, like, I know you're working really hard, and it's because I'm really sensitive about it still. Like I get really worried that people are going to pick up on these things that I do. And for the most part, I do things that work for me now. I eat foods that make me really happy and that I feel comfortable eating, and that I would never feel like I need to hide or advertise. Like, look, I ate a whole pizza. Yeah. Like I don't have to do that. But if it was ever like, if it was ever something where it was like picked up on, and it's so simple sometimes where it's like you've spent time with a person and you've noticed that they will pick their food apart, but none of it is actually gone, right? Like that's a big one. You interact with the food, but you never put any in your mouth, or you set your plate down and forget about it and things like that. There's very, very distinct things that people will do. Spitting it out into a napkin, that's like a huge one. So it looks like you ate, but you didn't. And yeah, there's so many things like that. But mostly just if you ever see a friend doing it, it's like the most non-accusatory, like it's like you have to, and in a way it has to be like you're being called out. And because it has to be a wake-up call. I think the thing that people don't really talk about so much with it is that you could die. Like, you could just straight up die.
Yeah. I think something that helped me, honestly, I guess I have approached a friend in the past year, and I said it as I'm noticing because I've done it too, sort of thing. And I think couching it that way so that there's not shame, like I understand. She was receptive and she was like, I'm right. You're right. But I saw, oh, wow. Okay. Thank you for cleaning that up. You're the best. There was a girl, I did a podcast when I hosted The Passionate Runner, and I did a podcast on eating disorders with somebody else, Tricia, and somebody reached out to me and about it and how it was like an important topic. And I looked at her, and she was the most sickly person I have ever seen. And she was, it was like worse than like a concentration camp. It was so scarring that I was just like, this is the saddest thing. And she didn't want help either. I tried connecting her with people, and
oh my.
And it was just like I could not get her out of my brain. That I was just like, this also just kind of fixed like any thought that I ever had. Cal, baby, my kids are down here, so it's hard to, I have a very hard time staying on track. But Olivia, what helped you? Because I know Tricia, you talked about running. Olivia, because that was like ingrained in the culture you were living in for years, and your family too. I mean, with both your parents being dancers.
Did it start really young for you too, Olivia?
I feel like probably the stuff with just having a bad relationship with food in general, yes. Like sneaking food was ingrained in my brother and I. Like if we got a second alone, we were sneaking a cookie or something. And not that my mom was like actively trying to deprive us. It would have been just she knows, if she listens, she knows that I call her out on this all the time, because she always would be like, "Oh, Olivia, are you sure you want to eat that? Or are you sure you want to eat that second cookie?" It was like the classic line from her. Like, and yeah. So, and then of course, I remember just school lunches being really, really hard to go sit with all my friends. And I was like, well, I'll feel so bloated if I eat this, and because I have to wear a leotard later. And so it like little things started then, but I felt like all my friends had this like fast metabolism and they were just skinny. And I wasn't like that. I wasn't not, but you know, I think my body dysmorphia was so out of control from such a young age. And then when I went to this ballet boarding school in Florida too, who knew? Florida, eating disorder central.
Yep.
No,
you're in a bathing suit year round.
Yeah, exactly. And I became obsessed with walking on a treadmill first, was like the first thing. Like just every meal got a 1 hour walk on the treadmill afterwards. And then it was that school was known for like it was like actively producing eating disorders, but when I look back, it wasn't anything that the teachers were doing, because the teachers are the ones that saved me from it. It was just like the culture around the students and stuff. And so I had gotten into this boarding school. I was really excited, and you know, I was doing okay. I wasn't like the best dancer. I wasn't the worst. I was very okay at the time. And then I started losing weight, and then I started getting all this attention, and it was fantastic. My legs like were going up higher, and my extensions were better, and everything looked better until it didn't. And my friends did not know what to do. Like they stopped being friends with me, and my roommate stopped talking to me. And it was so hard. My brother ended up also coming to that boarding school, and then my mom found out about it and stuff. And so I remember like somebody was passing notes one time and was like, I think I'm going to tell the director because her legs look so skinny. And it was a note about me, and I was like freaking out. And so, yeah, it was like a very normal day. It was probably like a Wednesday. We were just doing bar, and my teacher, she just walked out of the room, and I was like, what is happening? It was so weird. We all were looking around, and she just walked out of the room, and then the director of the school came and got me. Just so embarrassing. And I was so angry. I went to his office, and I threw this massive tantrum. Like I like pushed the books off of his desk. It was so embarrassing because my mom found out about all of it. And it was like I was being called out for something that I knew I was doing, but I felt like everybody knew my secret, you know? Even though I was just like in a leotard and tights, like everybody knew the secret, you know? And I did the same thing. I ate apples all day long. Yeah. Everybody had this joke about Olivia's addicted to apples. All she ever does is eat apples. And I just ate apples all day. And I still do, which is funny. They're my favorite fruit, but now I eat them with like Nutella and peanut butter, like a normal person. And it was crazy. It was really unhinged, but it went on for a long time. I didn't want any help. I had these big old sweatpants, and I would wear them for my weigh-ins, and I'd put stuff in the pockets. And, you know, if I was under like, I don't remember what their number was. It was some obnoxious number. Like if I weighed that now, it would be crazy. I would die, I think. And it was just insane. And I'd put even the Ensure that they would give me, I would just pour it down the drain, but then I'd put the bottles that they'd give me in the pockets so that I'd weigh more so I could go to ballet that day. And until then they figured out I was doing that. So no more sweatpants for weigh-ins. And then it was until they told me I couldn't be in the performance. And I was like, I better, like, I'm not going to do all this work and then not perform. Mm-hmm. So that was my first road to recovery. And same thing, they checked my heart, they checked my blood, and they told me that my heart muscle was going to start getting really weak and stuff. And that really freaked me out. And then, I saw a therapist, and I wasn't very receptive to it, but I was only 15 or 16 at the time, I think. And she was trying to explain to me that all of this was coming out of anger towards my parents and all this stuff. And I was like, I am not like that. listen, I am just not wired like that. I'm a ballerina. I'm wired like this. I'm just supposed to be skinny. Okay. And so I like gained just enough weight. And yeah, so it was just so easy to lie to everybody all the time. Like that's what you do. You just lie nonstop, whether you know it or not. Like even just like if you are binging and purging or eating and purging, that's a big fat lie. You're lying to everybody around you that you're fine. And yeah, I did that for so long. And honestly, once I started having aches and pains all over my body, it was just such an obvious thing that I just needed help. And so I started seeing a virtual therapist. Found someone that worked for me, and that just helped so much. And it was honestly probably a vicious cycle until I had my babies. So until like 2020 was probably when it started being like, oh, this is like I can be a normal person. I can eat normal food and stuff like that. So I was always in the cycle of it. I didn't get my period until I was 19. Like that's a massive, massive, massive red flag. If, like whenever anybody talks about having irregular periods and stuff, I'm like, what are their eating habits like? And yeah, running helped so much with fixing my relationship with food, though, because it was like those aches and pains in my body just were so prevalent every time I would start to go into like a bad food cycle and stuff like that. It was like all the alarm signals in my body were going off, but I don't think everybody is like that lucky to be so in tune, because you're in a cycle where you are just lying to yourself nonstop. And it is so sad, like, because sometimes you can do everything right to get someone the help that they need or support someone, and they just don't want the help. And it's like this addiction to it's this massive addiction, but so much of it is like the way we were raised, I mean, like a size 2 in the 90s was considered like a plus size person, which is insane, right? I mean,
I remember my dad, and no, like I will say no shade to them, because I don't think my issues are related to this, but like he and my mom would be on diets, and my dad one time came home. He had my mom get 10 pounds of fat from the butcher, and then he wanted it to be in the middle of the kitchen table so that because he wanted to lose 10 pounds. So he was like,
oh my gosh.
So I like remind myself so I don't go eat extras or whatever. And like he would joke with me growing up. He'd be like, "Oh, you're really filling out those jeans." And stuff like
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, at the time I never thought much about it, but now as a parent, I'm like, I cannot believe that.
Yeah.
Say stuff like that. So, but I will say, like, we've talked about how like running has helped us view food as fuel. I will also say, as somebody who has been injured and gained weight, the world did not end. Like nobody else really noticed. Nobody loved me less. I wasn't like less of a person because I weighed more or whatever. I think I faced my fear, like we have that fear can creep up. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ate all those cookies, or I couldn't run for 3 days because we were sick or whatever. And you think you're just going to wake up and balloon, and it's like, you don't. And even if you did, it's fine. And another lesson I've learned, if anybody's listening to this and they are injured and they can't run or for whatever reason, like once you will get back into it and your body will go back to that homeostasis that it had before. I think for most people. Yeah, I don't know. Like, do you guys have any pearls of wisdom if there's somebody listening who struggles with their relationship with food, especially if they don't have running in their life at the current moment?
I would say, like, reach out. I mean, reach out to me, reach out to anyone. I know, and Olivia, I was the same as you. I never really connected with a therapist about any of this. For me, it was connecting with other people that had been through it, that were not currently in it. And I think that's huge, because you can't like, and I get, when I pick up on people's patterns and stuff, it instantly just like, it's like a dagger to the heart for me, because I know, so it has to be somebody that is removed from it to speak with. And even Shanna, coming back to your question on like, if you pick up on these triggers and what are some things that you can do to help them, unfortunately, it is something that they have to want help. And I've had a lot of conversations with mothers of teenagers that are going through it. And I think the very biggest thing that you can do is be supportive and tell them, you know, like, hey, I'm here for you. I love you. I want to help you. Like, don't accuse them. Don't because all of us that have been in it, you're in such a fragile state that if someone comes at you being accusatory, it will instantly shut them off. So the more like welcoming and loving you can be to someone, I think the better. It's tough, but so then there's so many different foundations out there that provide help. Like, I think we should probably link some of those in the show notes just to help people that are struggling.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure. Shanna, do you have any tidbits?
I mean, I don't want to give like advice on something I've never struggled with. But like, I don't know. I think it's just be careful like with what you see on the internet, because I feel like there's like the masking is real. Like, I remember there was a time not long ago, recently, I won't name any names, but I had commented on a post, and it wasn't even directly at the person that made the post, but they were talking a lot about just like macro counting and things like that, like very strict with what they intake and what they and it's like, it was like, I didn't think about it as a red flag until probably now that I'm like, you guys are talking, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I think there's something going on, because when I made a comment, I was like, yes, this is great, but also it's okay to have the cookies, and it's okay, you know, and I made that totally not as like a dagger, like just speaking openly. And then the person came at me, like, was like, I don't have an eating disorder, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, not saying that they don't eat that stuff. And I was like, whoa, like, where is this coming from? Like, I truly was like, I was so baffled. I was like, and I messaged the person privately. I was like, I was not saying you have like an eating disorder or that you don't eat like desserts. Like, I was just trying to say it openly, because people read these messages so that they know, hey, like, people that run these times do eat that stuff. Like, it's okay to have balance. But now that I look back, I think there could have been something, and again, this is speculation, but I think there could be something, maybe even if it's not an eating disorder, it's body dysmorphia, or maybe it's like that very strict lifestyle. I notice when people have a very strict regime on anything, there's usually something going on mentally. Like, I can speak that for myself, from like when I used to strength train and I wanted to look a certain way, like, I was very, very strict on how that was. And I didn't have an eating disorder. I was never afraid of food or anything like that, but I was strict. I was type A, there was no fun or games around that. And I think there was something I was going through at that time that caused me to be that way. And so I just think, like, if you're watching people on the internet and they look like they have all their shit together and they're counting I don't know, it's like, not to accuse them, but to just be cautious with who you look up to, and know that, like, if you can't maintain that kind of a lifestyle your whole life, then it might not be the healthiest thing to replicate. I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
I think that's great advice.
Tip.
That's a great tip.
Oh,
because it's also like, what are you doing it for? You know, it's like you're counting, there's no fun, like, food is meant to be enjoyed. I mean, like, is it really worth it? Like, because that is a lifestyle. Like, counting macros and all that is a lifestyle. And I will tell you, like, I started the month of December, like, I was eating Christmas cookies every night, and usually like I just do this through Christmas and then it's fine. And now it's continued, and I used to feel shame, but now I'm like, so, like, I work hard, you know, because you're going to be a runner. Like, that's one of the perks of being a runner is you can pretty much eat whatever the hell you want and get away with it. Like, so instead of feeling ashamed it's like almost like a bragging right. Like, yeah, I'm going to eat all these cookies, like,
yeah.
Why not? But food is meant to be enjoyed. I mean, food is fuel and it serves a purpose, but it's also like you can eat it for the purpose of like, this tastes good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's
brings
it.
you
Period.
happiness.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. Period.
Yeah.
I posted something like one of my new favorite snacks because everybody know. Here's the new word for the podcast: nut butter. I love my nut butter.
It. I do too.
Love nut butter.
Love it.
And my new favorite
Smooth,
snack
crunchy.
is yeah. Oh yeah. Is cinnamon graham crackers with cashew butter. And I posted something on my stories and somebody snarkily said like, but that's all that refined sugar or something. And I was like, oh my God.
That's crazy.
Seriously.
Do you think like that's another point? Like with our kids, I've been really, because I grew up with like that teammate, I've been really cautious with like telling my kids how I explain food to them. Like I always am like snappy on my husband if he ever listens to this, but I'm like, it's not bad. Like it's not bad that cookies aren't bad food. They're just, you should have them in moderation. And so my oldest son he's actually the one I worry about the most, which is fun. Like out of all my kids, it's my son, where I notice he'll be like, he's like, I'm a little fat. And I was like, no, you don't. You're 7 and you're a twig. Like, shut up. Are you stepping on a scale? Or he'll be like, oh, you can't have a lot of this. And I'm like, no, you're 7-year-old. Like, you're totally fine. Like, I promise you, if I felt like I was alarmed, I would stop you. But just explaining that there's food that like fuels you for different reasons at different times versus like, that's bad food. You don't want that. That's bad for you. Or this is good food. Like, I really like, that's the one thing that I really try really hard in my house is like, not to call things bad all the time, because I grew up with that. And it's like, as a runner, like those fast carbs are a good thing. And that's been something I've had to process as a marathoner is like, oh, I can have that extra pieces of breads. Like those are good. That's good. You need that, So I don't know.
It's totally funny as you, Shanna. Oh, I'm so the same. Like psychotic about it. Like, and especially I remember my in-laws, like, and Whitney, you even mentioned, like, I feel like our parents' generation, like that, it was all the diet fads, like South Beach and Atkins and Slim Fast, and that's what I grew up in.
Atkins. My dad would come visit me in college, and we had to like drive around looking for Hardee's because they had the like just the slider with the egg on top or something. I'm like, seriously, we're in Washington D.C. and we're looking for a Hardee's. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, right. Come on.
I'm it's like funny. So over the top with people saying stuff like that.
It's like
I hate it.
The kids pick up on it from each other, and we have neighbors, and their kids would come over and start shaming us because we have just like regular chips, and we drink Gatorade in our family, and they kept making comments. By the way, they eat all of our food when they come over, which is another thing. I'm like, this is a lot of money that I'm spending on you guys to complain about the types of snacks that we have, but that's another thing. And I just like finally like lowered the hammer, and I was like, look, we are athletes in this family, and we can do whatever we want. Like,
I love that.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
I was getting so, I was like, because then my kids they were absorbing it, and they were like, is this unhealthy? Should I not be eating this? I'm like, you were healthy. You were good. Like, yes, you want to eat something that makes you feel good, but like that's, it can depend on what you're looking for. If you're just like my son would just live on gummies all day, every day. Yeah, if he wanted to. Yeah. So sometimes we need a little like, hey, how about a banana with your gummies?
I always remember going over to one of my friend's house, and her daughter was 7 at the time, and she always was like, Olivia, you eat so much food, you're gonna get a really big tummy. And I was like, where are you hearing this? And so I was like, this is crazy. Like, she's 7, because at the time my kids would have been much younger. And so I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. They pick up on everything so early. Like, because I think about how I was at 7, and I probably wouldn't have been picking up on that, because I would have thought it was normal to not have like that many cookies in the house and stuff like that. But Yeah, and so after that I was like, oh wow, no, this makes me big and strong. And so my son is obsessed with being big and strong now, and I'm like, did I hammer that in a little too hard? Because he's always like, is this healthy? Look at me after anything he consumes. Like, but I'd rather have that than it. I don't think they even know the word fat, which is great. Like, you know, they associate all big tummies with pregnancy, so which is also not great because he does ask. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But it's better. I'd rather have them associate big tummies with pregnancy than somebody just being larger, you know? So, yeah.
There's a lot 100%. Of wrongly congratulated people in your life.
Yeah. There was some incidences at the pediatrician.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, a couple times that I've had to apologize to moms and at the grocery store. But I do want to point out like a really good way to recognize as a runner if you are having a tough relationship with food and it's not ever been brought to your attention and you don't think that you have any issue is if the idea of fueling on a run is like a gel is scary to you. That was how I felt when I first started running. And I don't think I very much went into very much disordered eating when I was starting to run, but I was such a novice. Like I really had no idea what I was doing. And so I really wouldn't have known any better. But the idea of gels was the scary, like, because food, for me, that's how food was. Food was scary. Food was going to make me fat. Food was going to make me ill. Like that was how I viewed food. And so gels were terrifying. And it was something that I was like, I don't need this because I ate a meal at some point yesterday, you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah, so like a gel was very scary. And so like really reshaping, you know, I think a lot of people like go out for like 4 miles runs and feel like they need to take a gel. I personally don't believe that. Like your body should learn how to use what it has, but from like a fueling standpoint, not from a getting skinnier and burning calories and burning fat standpoint and stuff. So yeah, I've noticed that with a couple of people that I used to run with, like even just on the treadmill, and you know, they would just be shocked that I was gonna go for a double digit on the treadmill and take a gel while I was on the treadmill. And I was like, there's nothing scary about this, you know. But I do remember feeling that like that extra 100 calories, like it was just gonna make me fat right then and there, just boom.
Yeah, or you're like, I have to run an extra mile to make up for that gel, or it's the whole like.
There's still so much judgment out there now with people giving other people shit for taking. Yeah. I mean, if you want to take a gel to go for a 4 mile run, like you do you. How does that affect?
I agree.
Other people,
I totally do agree with that. You do
but
you.
It's like there's still so many people that like get on others for fueling.
It's so weird. It's so about them.
What?
Yeah.
Right. Like how does that affect you?
It's
like, I don't know.
Like why would you make a comment like that too? Like the craziest part is like I want to say, do they have an eating disorder? But they're typically men, so
always,
I don't know. I feel like nowadays, like if you talk to people who have, especially like teenage boys, like I think there's a lot of eating disorders and like body dysmorphia going on now, and like teenage boys.
Oh my gosh, that's so sad.
The internet.
I was just saying to show like gender doesn't mean anything, you know, like just because you have a son doesn't mean that he can't have an eating disorder when he gets older. Like it just, that's good to remember, you know, because I think sometimes I can fall into that, like, oh, well, my boys, I worry about this, and my girls, I worry about this. And it's like, that's not always true, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being open and talking about this. Hopefully we help some people, or maybe help some people help others. We will link to some resources in the show notes. Are you guys good if I read a review?
Yeah.
A good review? A positive review? Okay, so we got 5 stars the other day from Mac012222. So we don't know who you are, but thank you, Mac. This podcast is one of my new favorite listens. I discovered it incidentally on Instagram, suggested because I'm pregnant and a runner, I think. But I just finished listening to the Postpartum Return to Running episode, and I'm now hooked. I love how real this group is regarding a realistic return to running plan and what to expect postpartum. Since this is my first pregnancy, I have found this being one thing I'm curious about, and most posts on Instagram feature people who pop out a baby and are back to running a marathon within 1 to 2 months, which is great for those moms, but I'm not sure is realistic for me. This group on the podcast gives realistic and relatable and sometimes hilarious takes for the return. I love the emphasis on working with a pelvic floor PT as well. I can't wait to continue to listen for more pearls of wisdom. So thank you, Mac. We're glad we gave you a realistic view instead of the not very realistic or healthy pop out a baby and go run a marathon a few weeks later.
That's exactly what we were trying to do with this podcast, is normalize that taking time to enjoy your children and still be a runner is totally fine.
Yep.
Yes. Well, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
And let's remind everybody about the Patreon too. We have a secret podcast on the Patreon. So we're airing it's like at least 4 extra podcasts a month on there. So if you want more, you can get more. You just go to patreon.com/mileswithmoms podcast. I hope I don't have too much background noise. I'm sorry. There's a lot of activity going on upstairs, but nobody's screaming. So that's good.
Yeah,
that is good.
That's a win.
Yeah. All right. See you guys, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.